Hello and welcome to another update. In this one, we'll be talking about the general situation on the whole front line as well as what's going to happen from here. But we'll start out shortly with these two crosses by the Dnieper River. So these two crosses are by the two crossings across the Dnieper River, where the Antonovsky Bridge is as well as the Novokhorovka Dam is. So around the Antonovsky Bridge, if you look at the map, which is in the description, you can also see the links here, which are two links to videos on YouTube where there are video evidence of the bridges blowing up in Ukraine. And the second video is of the aftermath, where you see here that it is completely disconnected and there's no ability for any soldiers or equipment to pass through. Later on in the video, they also show here the pontoon crossing next to it is also disconnected and unusable. So the Russians have made sure that no one is able to follow them across the river. Now, as for the Novokhorovka hydroelectric power plant as well as the dam bridge and the dam itself, there's also been an explosion here, and here this has been shared on Ryber's Telegram channel. There's no skipping here, so we have to wait. But incidentally, the crossings have both been disabled and completely unusable, and it will take a long time to repair this kind of damage. This isn't just some hole you can pour concrete into. As you can see here, it's a large explosion and has made the crossing completely unusable. So the situation right now is that this whole front line to the west, there is no ability for either side to conduct any form or sort of crossing. The only form of fighting that could happen is followed by some kind of amphibious landing, which seems very difficult for either side to do, as the Russians have a lot of helicopters as well as defensive positions on this coastline, which allows them to prevent any form of amphibious landing by the Ukrainian side, as they can use their helicopters to shoot down any form of landing, and they have a lot of positions that will prevent the Ukrainian landing. So unless the Ukrainians have some sort of large force that they can use to land in one place similar to D-Day, then it will take a lot of time for such an operation to be planned, and it will be very hard on them logistically. However, I will not rule it out, but it will be further out in the future. Right now, the Russians are going to have a lot of ability to relocate their forces that they have placed earlier in Kherson and have now retreated across the river to the rest of the front line, which is actually the smallest it's been since the invasion started on the 24th of February, which means that both sides are able to focus their forces very heavily, and this completely changes the battlefield. As earlier we would probably see somewhere around 300,000 troops from either side on this whole front line. Now we are actually seeing somewhere around 500 to 800,000 from both sides on this front line, which is actually a very huge number, and it could be more than double what we've seen so far, which actually means that the intensity of the fighting is going to increase drastically, and also the effectiveness of area of effect bombings as well as artillery. All of these things are going to increase drastically, is the nature of these weapons as the higher the concentration of forces are in these areas. So generally, I would say this is actually advantageous to the Russians that they are on a smaller front line. However, the Ukrainians have proven that they're able to conduct some kind of lightning attacks with their heavy equipment as well as advanced soldiers, which means that we may see some kind of offensive towards Melitopol, which I've analyzed in an earlier previous video, where they could advance towards Melitopol and cut off these supply lines between Crimea and Russia. And if they manage to capture this coastline here, they would be able to shoot towards the Kerch Bridge with their HIMARS rocket systems, which will allow them to do to the Kerch Bridge what they have done to the Antonovsky Bridge when the Russians were holding on to Kherson from the Ukrainian side, which means that they could initiate some kind of campaign similar to what they have done around Kherson to Crimea to recapture it. However, at the same time, we see that there is the influx of the new Russian troops, as well as the new general who is overseeing the operations. He is now pulled back from Kherson as one of the first things he's done. And he's also not initiated any proper offensives since he's taken charge. He's been in charge for now almost 2 months, and there's been no operations. So we still don't know exactly how well this new general is at offensive operations, as he's not conducted any. All we've seen so far is that he knows how to retreat from somewhere, as we have seen that the Russians have managed to successfully retreat from Kherson with most of their units as well as their heavy equipment, which indicates, according to British intelligence earlier today, that the Russians most likely have been doing this withdrawal for weeks undercover, which indicates that this general may actually be able to conduct surprise attacks or hidden offensives, which is beyond what we see, as we have seen that they have managed to retreat 20,000 soldiers, then they could also manage to keep those undercover for a large offensive in a concentrated area. So we are yet to see exactly how effective this new general is, but depending on the success of him, he could change the tide of the war with his tactics. Now, this is going to be it for this update. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.